Hi, welcome to the Readers Clubhouse, where two sisters revisit their childhood favorite content. I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Brianna, and today we are going to be introducing to you what our podcast is going to be about, and a little bit about us as well as the hosts for this new podcast.
Bow, 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 bow! Woo! You're welcome.
So,
we're excited. Well, I'm excited. Are you excited?
Yes, I am excited to do this. We've talked about doing it forever, and we finally are actually doing it, which is a big, honestly, step, just actually taking that step.
Yes, pat on the back. Yes, good job.
Pat.
Success.
All right, so to start off with, we want to go over why do this podcast? What is the point of it? There's a ton of other podcasts out there. So I'm going to pass it off to Caitlin, and she's going to start us off with explaining the why.
Okay, so the why is mostly because Brianna and I talk about this stuff literally all the time.
Constantly.
We often talk about the things we're reading or things we're watching or playing or things like that. And I think, especially for us recently, we've been discussing a bit more of stuff we read as kids or teens that really made an impact for us. And honestly, there's been a few specific things for both of us that have made it like impacts in our lives and books that we reread. And a lot of the times, I guess recently, I've been the one rereading them, and I'll text Brianna being like, oh my gosh, this character, do you remember them doing that?
And then I try to vaguely remember if said character did that.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Caitlin's terrible memory, for some reason, can recall random plot things just out of nowhere, and she can't remember something someone asked her to do. It's crazy how that happens. So yeah, we basically just wanted to do this podcast because a lot of the stuff that we read is pretty, I don't want to say old now, because some of the stuff like the years we were born or
yeah, but some
like
of it was written also before we were born, so it's still old.
That's true. But even the stuff that was written when we were born it's not old in terms of people being old. It's old in terms of it's been 30 years since the book was written, and 30 years for a book is actually a long time. And so they're definitely not modern takes on whatever happens in life. So it's a lot. This podcast is about nostalgia. It's about what we read or watched or played as kids. It's called the Readers Clubhouse because a lot of it is going to be books. A lot of it is going to be things we read as kids or as young people. So we will visit other types of media as well, just because those were a part of our youth. But for the most part, it's going to be books. And we're going to start out with mostly books as well.
Yeah. We do have some plans for guests that will probably be the ones that we tap into with other media. But who knows what's going to happen as we try to get this off the ground to do it. So that's kind of the fun with it.
If you're a friend and you want to be a part of our podcast because there's a piece of media that you find particularly nostalgic, you just go ahead and let me know, or Brianna know if you're one of her friends.
True. All right, so the next part we wanted to kind of go over is how reading has been for us. And we're going to start with essentially the beginnings of it for us. So when we were kids and that kind of thing. And I'll start us off. Okay. I have been reading since I was a kid. I actually have an interesting relationship with reading, and that I struggled with learning to read because of various life things. We moved during school, etc. Kind of messed things up. So I was very insecure when I first started to read, but when I finally got into it, I was obsessed with it, and I read it all the time. I read all the time and gobbled up so many books between my childhood and my teen years and my early 20s. Then I eventually, unfortunately, during my early 20s going into my late 20s, barely read anything. Just some things here or there, or reread things that I'd already read before. I had a really hard time staying focused on reading and stuff, and which was sad because to me, reading was always something that was comforting. It always got me through some really hard times in my life, and I really did miss it a lot. Thankfully, and we'll get into this a second with our current, where we're at with reading and everything, that has changed fairly recently. But yeah, so that's been my very brief journey about reading as read a ton as a kid and a teen, not so
Yeah.
much as a young adult. And now as like an older adult, it's changed a little bit.
Yeah. Kind of similar for me. I think I did not struggle to learn to read. I can't remember how or when even I learned how to read. For me, it feels like reading has always been a part of me. I know that is
Yeah.
not scientifically true, but it's how it feels.
Yeah.
But what I remember is Brianna and I, like, we shared a room for most of our childhood, and then even a not insignificant part of at least my adulthood.
Yes, yeah.
And but as a kid, you were reading a lot because you're older than me, and like because we were sharing a room, you would be reading at night or something, and that is kind of what got me into reading, and specifically the series we're actually going to start with. That is what I credit for getting me into reading. And same thing as I just devoured books constantly. In high school, I was one of those kids that knew how many books you could put on hold at one time at the library. It was 22. And, sorry, it was 25. 22 was the most I ever had on hold at the library at one time. And because the town where I went to high school, the library was actually really close. I'd go in there frequently. And then even just buying books, going into bookstores, reading was just a big part of my life. It was the same for me. It was an escape. Life was not always easy, is the quick way to explain that. And so reading became a way for me to escape reality for a little while. But also, the older I got, the more I saw stories as pointing not just to things in me and evoking emotions in me. So there were things that, if I wanted to feel joy, I wanted to feel sadness, if I wanted to feel angry and things like that, I could go into reading and I could find books that would evoke these emotions in me. But they also pointed to like a greater storyline and kind of impacted by faith and all that kind of stuff. So reading just became this really big core of who I was. I remember doing the accelerated reading program in elementary school, and in third grade, I read so many books. I was in the top, I want to say top 3 kids. I can't remember, so if someone went to school with me and is just like, no, that's not true, Caitlin, feel free to correct me. But like in my whole school in third grade of reading the books and having the memory to be able to take the tests and all that kind of stuff. So
for anybody that isn't American, accelerated reading program was a thing where you try to read as many books as you could to a certain point, and you get like a pizza party and prizes or something. Like that was part of it. There was like a thing, I never read enough to do like the sleepover or whatever they did, and stuff, because I was always like, I prefer
part of my school.
No, yeah, I mean, there's a significant gap between me and you, so things definitely could have changed, or wherever you were at and stuff. But like, so just so the context people have, it was a special reading program that it's a really big thing. A while back and stuff.
Yeah. You would read a book, and then there was a program that you would take the test, and you'd earn points for how well you remembered stuff from the book. And I smashed that. I was good at it. So that's where I was. And then I got into college, and I stopped reading because I discovered the internet. Just kidding. I obviously knew the internet was a thing before that. But we had streaming services. High school, I was the only one at home. And so, like, we watched TV. It was the early days of Netflix and Amazon. I don't think Amazon actually had streaming services at that point. I can't remember. But even then, like, it started to taper off sort of my senior year of high school. And then through college, I watched a lot more Netflix and Hulu and YouTube, a lot of stuff on YouTube, because that was kind of the days where people were streaming things on YouTube, and I realized that was a thing that people did. I'm probably about 10 years behind trends, just in general, because I'm a bit of a grandma, so.
Yeah. Definitely, both of us are a little bit of grandmas with a lot of things.
You're a little bit more in terms of pop culture, like, relevant to the time. Sometimes you say things, and I'm like, you must have learned that from TikTok. And
which is funny because I'm older than you, but
But you're on TikTok and I'm not, and
that's true.
That's what
that
gets
is
us.
True.
Anyway,
so moving on, to kind of end our little bit, talking about where we're at with reading right now. Now, specifically for me, I have really gotten back to reading the last 2 years, and there's a couple of factors involved with that. One of them is I found that I could read on my phone, and it was a little bit more accessible to me at the time because I was having a really hard time focusing on paper books. I still love them. I still want to have physical copies of ones that I really like and stuff. But I found a number of things where I can get virtual books or listen to audiobooks or that kind of thing, and that really has helped me do that. I've also found genres that really interest me, and my tastes have changed as I got older, I think, is part of it. Not fully. There's still some things that I really loved that have carried over from my childhood that are still as adult, but there's some extra added elements into them. So reading those different types of stories, acknowledging that I am not the same person I was when I was a kid, teen, early young adult kind of a thing, has really helped me shift. And as you know, by the time this episode might be out, this number will change. I've read, what is this? This is September of 2024. Since January of this year, I have read almost 300 books. I'm I need less than 25 books left to reach that and stuff. Who knows what I'll do when I end out. And I'm not saying I'm reading those giant books or anything like that. I am reading a lot of novellas or just shorter stories because that's what my brain can process and stuff. And I'm not saying the whole number thing because I'm I'm a better reader than anybody or any of that kind of stuff that I sometimes see on Book Talk and stuff. No, it's just that is something I've been enjoying doing and staying on top of, and it's helped me enjoy reading again and stuff. And everybody's reading journey is different, but that's kind of where I've got is I just got really hyper focused on it, and it's been fun, and I've enjoyed being haha, I've almost read this amount of books. Some of them I've liked and some of them I've had it. So that's where I'm at. What about you, Caitlin?
Similar, actually, just in the last couple of years, me getting into reading. I moved to the UK in 2021, and I'd read sort of over the last few years, since graduating college, probably a handful of books in a year. Maybe 5 books in a year, maybe a little bit more than that. I don't remember. I didn't track it at the time. I didn't really have Goodreads or realize that was a thing that you could do. Because again, I'm behind on the times. But in 2021, a friend that I was staying with actually during my first month in the UK, she recommended a murder mystery to me, and I was like, okay, I like murder mysteries. My preferred genre tends to be fantasy or science fiction, but I read a particular series of murder mysteries when I was young, and so I was like, okay, I'll try this out. And I read that, and then another friend, there was a group of women at my church that were just like, oh, here's another book recommendation, here's another book recommendation. So it just became someone would give me a book, and I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to read it because this person gave it to me, and I want to, talk to them about how, what I thought about the book. And then, in the end of 2021, I realized people were doing reading goals and things like that. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's a thing you can do. I think I technically got Goodreads probably in 2018 or 2019, but didn't use it because whatever. So in 2022, I set a reading goal, and then I thought I'd smashed it, but recently I went back to look at it, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't actually smash the reading goal as much as I thought I did. I exceeded it just by a smidge.
Hey, a smidge is a lot sometimes.
A smidge is a lot. You're right. Isn't Smidge from the Troll movies? Isn't there a person named Smidge in the Troll movies? Isn't she
that sounds right.
The little yellow one that has
a really deep voice. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's so fun. What her name is. It's been a while.
That's great. Anyway, that was irrelevant. But it was actually the heart of this podcast is what got me back into reading, which was I decided in 2022, in order to get myself back into reading, I'd reread my favorite books. And so set out to do that, some of which we're going to talk about on this podcast. Actually, a majority of which we're going to talk about on this podcast because Brianna and I have similar things. Yeah, and then since then, it's just been really consistent with reading. Well, when I say consistent, I mean every year I've read, and every year I've set a goal, and then I have beat that goal by at least 10, if not more books. And this year, actually, I have read, this and last year, I've read a lot more new books than I have in previous years, which has been really fun. Because I found some stuff. And actually I have to confess something. Because you love romance and you love romance novels.
Yes, I do.
I think I archetype myself as someone who hates romance. And I think people like have said to me, Caitlin, I can't believe you hate romance. All that kind of fun assumptions. I don't hate romance. I actually enjoy romance.
I know you do.
What is that supposed to mean?
We've had many conversations about certain couples and books that we both have read.
It's true.
So I know you like romance. I just think, like, for me, like 10 or more than 10 years ago now, when I was younger, I was of the mindset, like, I couldn't read anything that was just romance and stuff. And my brain has obviously changed that. I do not mind romance being the larger portion of it, though I will be honest.
Yeah.
I am not a big fan of contemporary romance where the only plot is them getting together and stuff. Yeah. So, like, I still have some stipulations on that, but sorry, continue with what you were saying.
My stipulations are I want romance to be one of the flavor texts of a book. I want it to be about something else. The plot mainly to be about something else. And then for the romance to be a side plot. Whether it's like a main side plot or a minor side plot, I don't really care. Yeah. And I actually, So I just want to tell all of my friends that have been like, Caitlin, I can't believe you hate romance so much. I don't hate it. I don't want it to be the central focus of what I'm reading. I want there to be something more than two people falling in love. And that's it. So
everybody
I just
has
had to confess that. Confess. I had to I'm going to put it out there. Because my friends will hear me say, potentially on this podcast, if any of them are listening, things like, oh my gosh, this character and this character, they fall in love and I'm so excited. And then they're going to be like, I thought you hated romance. And I don't. I just, it's the B plot or the C plot or the D plot or something like that. And I don't want it to be the A plot.
Yes. That's understandable. So, this is only supposed to be a short thing. So we are going to end this little introduction episode to explain to you kind of what we're doing, like what the plan is. We are going to start off this podcast by starting with a series that is very near and dear to our hearts, the Redwall series. I'm not going to explain too much about
our bodies.
Oh yes, tattooed upon our bodies. We both have a specific item from the books, and we'll talk about this at a later time, but we have a specific item from the books tattooed on us. Currently, it's the only tattoo I have. I would like to rectify that at some point. But, so this book series is very near and dear to us. We're going to be going, and talking about each of the books. There's 22 of them. So we have a lot of material to cover. It's going to be, it's going to take us a while to get through it. And we also aren't going to just do them all in a row. We're going to be dispersing different books and other media throughout it to kind of break it up over time and stuff. But that's kind of our goal, is every episode is us going to be going over a book from the Redwall series or another thing that we like or was a childhood favorite or something like that. So that's what the plan is going forward. Redwall to start, and then who knows what's going to happen in the future and what other plans we might have. So that's what we've got. I think that's all, Caitlin. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so. Just follow us along on this journey as we revisit our nostalgic properties of the media. And I hope you enjoy me antagonizing Brianna and saying and making jokes that make her blink very slowly and shake her head. And
guys, if you could see us, there'd be a lot of times where it's just a silent judgment for some of the jokes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I get the Brianna look from you sometimes. If looks could kill.
If looks could kill.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Readers Clubhouse. If you like this discussion and you want to hear more, you can find us on YouTube and Spotify every other Friday. You can check out the episode description for our socials, and you can join us next time in the Clubhouse as we discuss the very first book of this journey, the very first book of the Redwall series by Brian Jacques, also called Redwall. We will see you guys next time. Bye!
Bye!